Chapter 124B, You Reflected in the Mirror. While facing the witch who stares back at her from the mirror, Amelia sighs. Composed solely of monochrome black and white, the Witch of Greed, Echidna. Having discovered Echidna in this dream world reproduction of her room, Amelia keenly feels that this truly is a place constructed from her own head. A peaceful, tranquil, kind world where her life in the forest continued forever. A world where she could spend her days alongside Fortunas, Juices, Arches, and everybody's smiles. Amelia, but that world doesn't exist, does it? Echidna, utterly not. This is a false world constructed with your memories and wishes as the basis. However, the world-arranging algorithms that precede over the trial transcend human knowledge. The people you see in this world are most exactly who they would have been, had there been just one flick of the switch. Amelia has just remembered the truth the day of behind Elier Forest's freezing. Had there been no casualties back then, and the forest's tranquility have been preserved, their lives would have been ones where everyone smiled. The sight of Fortuna and Juice, seated jovially at the dinner table, has seared itself into Amelia's mind. It is exactly the scene that young Amelia had wished to see from the bottom of her heart, and equally was so for the present Amelia, with her memories restored. Echidna, has witnessing the uncomfortable present made you want to submerge in this world? As if peering into Amelia's heart, Echidna assaults her with sweet temptation. Amelia raises her head. Echidna gazes back, her eyes as cold as her voice. She strokes her snow-white hair, letting it flow over her shoulder and down her back. Echidna, your mother, and that Goodman. Does witnessing their happiness give you no desire for this to continue forever? I'm sure you've thought it pleasant and so dreamed of spending your days with everyone in the forest, and of your friends being so familiar with you. Amelia, what are you trying to say? Echidna, just some resentment or something like it. That you found me means that you've already reached your answer regarding this world. And I know that this answer of yours is to choose reality over dream and exceedingly dull. If we're going to be seeing results regardless, I may as well leave some faint indentations behind. Amelia. Echidna, rather than the happiness of your mother and your peers, you elect for a reality where they met unfortunate demise. The result of your trial is, you are ultimately a wretched woman who prioritizes herself over others. Echidna's fierce criticism lances through Amelia's chest. Her words are so cutting that Amelia feels pain, and though she has not actually been stabbed, she puts her hand to her chest and impulsively retreats a step. Amelia's reaction makes Echidna snort. Echidna, so long as that's given you some self-awareness. Anyway, the trial doesn't take the personality of its challengers into consideration. So long as they're qualified, be they a hopeless moral bankrupt, or be they a conglomerate of egotistic narcissism, the trial will accept them equally. Rest assured. You'll achieve your goals in short time. Amelia, it's so, sore a spot you're going for. Are you like this with everyone? Echidna, not at all. Echidna shrugs in response to Amelia's strained statement. Echidna, other than you, there's only two people in the world who I interact with spitefully. Amelia, it doesn't make me happy at all to be chosen for that world 3. I don't remember ever doing anything that would make you hate me that much. Echidna, there's no need to look so worried. My hatred for you has nothing to do with you being a half-elf. It isn't a question of your pedigree. With no connection to blood or nature, I just hate you. Or no, that may not be strictly correct. Amelia? Echidna lowers her gaze, feeling something off about the latter half of her statement. Amelia furrows her brows at the brooding witch, before giving a small shake of the head. There's no way she can turn tail and just leave those previous comments sitting there. Echidna has said so many things that need to be invalidated. Not only for Amelia's sake, but for the honor of everyone in the forest. Amelia, I don't think there's much to do about you hating me. I know how hard it is for absolutely everyone to like you. Since so many people have told me they hate me. Echidna, if that's the case, then it would have been nice of you to show some prudence and stay in the forest. Amelia, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm sure I said it in the last trial. I'm going to melt the ice and save everybody. Then I'm going to hold my chest high and teach everyone that now, the world's an easier place to roam. Echidna, easier to roam. What a brazen lie. Discrimination between races remains great, and people cannot easily accept those who differ from themselves. Which is why places like Sanctuary retain their function even today. The disagreements you're referring to will forever result in compounding casualties throughout the world. Am I wrong? Amelia, you're not wrong. Echidna's severe comments put Amelia on the border of pessimism. Amelia still remembers the days she spent with Puck in the forest. How the nearby villages feared her, and showered her in more than a few curses, and more than a little spite. Echidna's merciless attitude makes Amelia think about those days. She can try not to recollect on them, but the wounds and their unhealed scars continue to assert their pain. Amelia, but I'm going to act as if you are. Echidna. Still focused on that pain, Amelia firmly rebuts Echidna. She watches Echidna narrow her eyes and bites her lip, strength entering her eyes. Amelia, being unlike others does, sometimes, make painful disagreements happen. Whether there's lots or not many of you might be a big factor for what determines the victims and assailants, sometimes too. Echidna, and it's been repeats of that, throughout history. People cannot accept those unlike them. The disparity in numbers represents exactly the disparity in strength. The many oppress the few. Now that you understand this truth, and have gotten a little bit wiser, what are you going to do? Gather up the few, and create a utopia for weaklings? Now wouldn't that be exactly the essence of this place we call sanctuary? Amelia, that's one option you could choose, I think. But I want to choose a different path. Even if I can't change that there were victims or assailants, the future's another story. The second that Amelia says the word future, Echidna's expression freezes numb. To Amelia, it feels like Echidna is angry, as if this is something she absolutely doesn't want to be hearing from Amelia of all people. But Amelia continues. Amelia, I'm sure I'm going to do lots of things throughout the royal selection. I might face even more insults and spite than I did before. But I want to always say that I will never stop. To ask what's so wrong about being unlike someone else. To ask what's so scary about being unlike our neighbors. Echidna, I'd rather you stop making me say this, but this is fundamental truth. People cannot accept the discrepancies between themselves and others. By essence, all creatures desire for others to be the same as themselves. To like the same things, love the same things, hate the same things, abhor the same things they feel secure when matters are so, and love their capacity to sympathize. Your platform will be denied. As the ramblings of the weak. Amelia, but that's just a neglect to think. It's lame. Echidna, lame. Yells Amelia. Echidna's eyes shoot open, looking not to have expected that word in the least. Amelia puffs out her chest. Amelia, it is. Amelia, it's so lame. You're not like your neighbor, so you hate them, are you a child? It's ridiculous that someone would block their ears for a reason like that. I'll say it countless times to any of those nitwits. Rather than mindlessly yell that you don't like it, if you're looking to quiet my endless tirades, it's easier to change your thinking a little. Echidna, absolutely self-centered. Incredible self-deception. You'll eliminate the opinions of others that you wish not to hear, so that you may enforce your own? Amelia, I'm not eliminating anything. It's up to them whether they unblock their ears. I'm just confident that I'm the more stubborn. Her hand to her hip, Amelia demonstrates to Echidna that her will not bend. Echidna's expression turns sour and she averts her gaze from Amelia. Echidna, whatever you may assert, the world has not changed yet. The forest dwellers, frozen in ice supposing that they are alive, and you do bring them into a thawed world, society is not prepared to accept them. All you are doing is tossing those who were kind to you into adversity. All for your hypocritical beliefs. Amelia says nothing. Echidna, you wish to free your friends as soon as you can. But should you free them, your friends will suffer as the world rejects them. Living is suffering and death too is suffering. In a world like this, what can your individual willingness do? What can it change? What does it change? Echidna is sincerely inquiring this of Amelia. She has verified Amelia's resolve through the two trials of the past and impossible present. Now, Echidna is asking Amelia about her resolve for the future. About Amelia's prospects should she follow her intentions through. About the route she will take to reach her imagined future. About what Amelia will use as her cornerstone, and upon what concrete basis she will create this path. Amelia nods in reply and... Amelia, I'll think about that after I finish the trial. Echidna, ha. Amelia, it's putting the cart before the horse if I get so focused on the future that I forget where I am. I know how this sounds when I'm the one saying it, but I'm a bumbler. When there's a wall I have to scale, but I'm worrying about what's on the other side of it, I'll wind up falling into the hole at the foot of the wall. Between the trials and her argument with Subaru, Amelia feels that she has a rather correct, objective view of herself. She feels that her appraisal of herself is also unrestrained. She is not someone so adroit that she can manage many things on her own. It's a question of whether, after putting in her very best effort on the thing right in front of her, she'll manage to procure results. She has hope for the future. Prospects for the future. Resolved to aim for those hopes and prospects, she must take the very first step on the road to achieve them. What she should be establishing right now is that exact first step. Echidna, I finally remembered how pointless it is to debate with you. Honestly, this was all rather idiotic of me. Amelia, I know that you're smart, but I kinda think it's so unfair for you to shut down other people's opinions like that. Echidna, do you believe that we exchanged any opinions? I presented questions and you replied with empty platitudes. I'd forgotten. That you're a hopeless child, unable to stand on your own, constantly relying on others, a weak woman. Amelia, you're right. I am a weak child. Amelia lowers her eyes and gives a small shake of her head. But she immediately looks back up and matches her gaze to Echidna's. Amelia, but... Amelia, is being weak really so wrong? Echidna, what? Amelia, I know that the person who taught me something very important would say this. It isn't wrong to be weak. It's wrong to want to stay weak. She thinks of the black-haired, nasty-eyed boy. Lamenting his powerlessness, but kind and thus suffering more wounds than anyone else in his efforts, a precious boy. If it were him, who borrowed everyone's aid but nevertheless took a place for the most painful parts, he would absolutely say that. Echidna, reorientation. Amelia, I was slow to reorient. Seeing how a smile arises on Amelia's face, Echidna perceives that there is truly no room for debate. Echidna has no methods to stop the persistently optimistic, overly enthusiastic Amelia. Meddling in the issue any further would even begin to impact her dignity as a witch. Echidna, well, enjoy the remaining trial. Once you've completed it, a reality far harsher than these trials awaits you. I'm sure you'll come to understand just how difficult it will be to uphold your shiny platitudes. Amelia, thank you for going out of the way to talk to me. I'll make sure to remember what you've told me. And she must be moments away from disappearing from the mirror. Seeing how Echidna's reflection begins to fade in the mirror, Amelia continues her speech. Echidna furrows her brows, looking sour. And Amelia, thank you for showing me this world. Echidna. Amelia, it might be an impossible world, but it's still one I wanted to see. I never thought a day would come where I'd see them, Mother and Father Juice laughing together like this. Thank you. It did hurt when Echidna told her that this world was not real. But even if it is an impossible world, these scenes are what would have occurred. These scenes full of happiness and love, enough to make Amelia tremble in joy and sorrow. I'm so glad I got to see this, thinks Amelia from the bottom of her heart. Echidna, you. And so Amelia expresses her thanks and Echidna's expression shifts. Her expression has been one of witnessing something disgusting, her attitude has been one of withstanding displeasure, her stance has been one of scorn toward all of Amelia's action, and she has shown many such faces until now, but this expression is different from all of them. Echidna, looking close to tears, simply gazes at Amelia. Amelia, Echidna? Echidna, I hate you. I just hate you. Says Echidna, voice strangled and face cast down. Her image in the mirror then warps, and the white-haired witch disappears from the glass in an instant. Instead what appears is a girl with long, silver hair and Amelia, HK. A wave of rejection spears through Amelia's chest as she promptly averts her gaze from the mirror. Her pulse has accelerated, and her breathing has grown slightly ragged. She's supposed to have steeled herself for this, but it still terrifies her to be reflected in a mirror. Amelia. A century passed in the frozen Elier forest before Puck saved Amelia from the ice. She has never seen what she looks like grown up. The reason's simple. She's just scared. Her century of slumber in the ice means that Amelia's heart has remained immature, while her body has matured to womanhood. Once she regained consciousness, and first realized that she couldn't control her body very well, Amelia was struck with the illusion that her body may not be hers, and spent many nights in tears. The reactions from the neighboring villagers helped spur on that trauma of hers. Amelia shared the same distinctive physical traits as the Witch of Envy, and the villagers feared her like a demon. Even though they realized that Amelia was going to do them no harm, they continued to alienate her. Once people knew that Amelia was not going to do anything, what awaited her was a life of discrimination, spite, and curses. During that time, Amelia came to at least unconsciously recognize that people hated her because she looked like the Witch of Envy. That would be when she started rejecting mirrors and keeping her eyes from her own visage, which others detested. Puck noticed Amelia's mental wounds, and removed everything reflective from her vicinity. He would even call out to her when she was out fetching water, distracting her so that she would not face herself on the water's surface. One of the clauses in her contract with Puck, where he was the one in charge of Amelia's daily grooming, was most likely something to protect Amelia. To protect his daughter, who could not look in a mirror, Puck used the contract as pretext to mask her trauma. Amelia, I really have had so many people looking after me. And how long has she spent sulking alone without realizing how others felt? This is the end of the time she spent in ignorance of what she's been given. She takes a breath, freezes, and raises her head, undertaking the personally momentous deed of sighting herself in a mirror. Reflected in the mirror is a girl with long silver hair and amethyst eyes. who is glaring so intently at her, looking as if it's the end of the world. Amelia, the heck? She says, the whole thing anticlimactic. Seeing her matured visage in the mirror, Amelia sighs. Amelia, I look less like Mother Fortuna than I thought, it's too bad. After her sulky mutter, the world shatters into pieces. This happy, desired, but inevitably to part dream world, ends here. Amelia, ah-ha. After regaining consciousness, Amelia realizes that she had fallen asleep while leaned against the wall. She had slumped to sit on the floor with her legs splayed out aside her, relying on the wall engraved with Subaru's messages. She combs her fingers through her disheveled hair and imagines the sight of her own self. So that was her appearance, feared by many as a witch, and what Subaru constantly said was cute, or that he loved. Amelia, with her impoverished understanding of personal aesthetics, cannot tell which party is correct. However, Mother Fortuna is Amelia's conception of the prettiest and coolest of people. And so she does not think nasty eyes are a bad thing, and actually she doesn't dislike how nasty Subaru's eyes are either. Amelia, I just got back, this isn't the time for me to be thinking about weird stuff. Putting her hands to her cheeks, Amelia pulls the brakes on her own thoughts. It's all so ludicrously spineless of her. She safely ends the trial and returns, and just looking at Subaru's handwritten messages seriously gets her this elated? Amelia, but this does mean that the second trial is really over, right? Mutters Amelia to nobody as she gets to her feet and starts thinking about her results. Going from how Echidna was acting at the end, the trial is most likely over. Unlike with the first trial, Amelia feels no particular sense that she has overcome anything. But she indeed did wrest her near-captivated heart away, and managed to return. Amelia. Fortuna and Juice. As Amelia thinks back on how close they were, her heart aches. But she suppresses her sorrow and turns her back to the trial room. Supposing that the third trial is ready, it will require Amelia to exit and enter again, as she did with the second trial. She'll coast off her momentum to defeat the third trial, and liberate Sanctuary. For Subaru's sake, and for Ram's request, and to actualize the big talk she spoke to Roswell, people need her to take action. Amelia, it's just pitch black. Passing through the dark corridor of the tomb, her footsteps peeling off the stone floor, Amelia narrows her eyes as she notices how dim the light spilling into the ruin's entrance is. Perhaps clouds are blocking out the moon, or this hazy glow is from starlight. In Sanctuary, which loses essentially all sources of light come nightfall, only the natural lighting pouring down from above serves to rip through the nocturnal dark. Amelia, huh? Is what Amelia ponders as she walks. So when she steps outside the tomb, the horde of gazes focusing on her lead her throat to unwittingly jam. We are in her presence. Somebody speaks up, and a chatter instantly spreads through the crowd. The stir only unfolds further before the flinching Amelia, the overwhelmingly large group of people all focusing their attention on her. These are the residents of Sanctuary. The people who live in Sanctuary other than Garfield and Lewis. Amelia has not interacted with them any more than necessary during her time here. Partly because Amelia's mental state hadn't been calm enough for it, partly because they had not been actively trying to interact with Amelia either. Amelia has a kind of resignation when it comes to people staring at her like this. The residents detest Amelia's lineage, but hold expectations for her to liberate Sanctuary, and most of all must ascertain whether she is someone worthy of standing at their head. And so Amelia had thought it impossible that they would show themselves to her in such great numbers before she had succeeded in liberating Sanctuary. Amelia had been convinced that interaction with them would only ever come about once she had achieved in attaining results. So then why were they all gathered here? And why were their gazes towards Amelia filled not with loathing, but strong expectation? Can't say it's the nicest of things. Before the bewildered Amelia, a girl steps forward from the group of villagers. With her long, pink hair, this person is Lewis. She steps forward to represent the villagers as she gives Amelia a smile. Lewis, everyone here is stuck at a standstill. Wondering what answer you're gonna give to the trial and worrying about what will happen to us after Sanctuary's been freed. Amelia, I think it's inevitable that you would. But how would this be not the nicest of things? Lewis, now thirt's easy. Everyone in Sanctuary, about Lil Gar and Lil Sue's fight, about your argument with Lil Roz, or, well, lots of things. We've all been discussing them in detail, and from there. Amelia, discussed it. While she watches Lewis scratch her cheek, Amelia's cheeks flush red. Never mind Subaru and Garfield's clash of wills, Amelia's argument with Roswell was just her being pushy with her unrefined opinions. She had rationalized to herself that it wouldn't be embarrassing for anyone to hear it, but now that she knows that someone actually did hear it, it is making her embarrassed. Amelia, but, even if you did hear about it, Louis-san, where did you? Louis, HRM, so aberrant that, fair however I might look, I girt incredibly sharp ears. With it, you pretty much can't keep anything a secret so long ers you're in sanctuary. Amelia, you do. Wow. Louis's confession of eavesdropping winds up impressing Amelia more than angering her. Failing to notice how the young-looking old woman sticks out her tongue, Amelia nods in recognition of why so many people have assembled here. And villager, Amelia-sama. Amelia, why yes. Louis, you sound like you're met through a dating service. He's one of the villagers, and being that he's in sanctuary, most likely a demi-human half-blood. His canines are slightly long, and his pupils are slit. He looks about as old as Roswell or maybe a little bit older, seeming somewhat tense as he steps out before Amelia. Villager, no, we are, in complete sincerity, we are still undecided. Amelia. Villager, about whether we may trust in you, or what it will mean to learn of the world outside sanctuary. Plainly said, the outside is awash with things we don't know, and scares us. We were all born inside here, and have lived inside here. We know nothing of the outside. This was what Garfield had also propounded, the way of life in sanctuary. The 400-year barrier has forced the people inside into life here for generations. They had no way to escape, and perhaps no need to think about the outside either. But now means to escape exists plainly before them, and this utterly foreign and unknown person named Amelia is attempting to liberate them. Of course people would feel unease and rebellion. And doubtful that many could burst into the outside world, utterly confident. Amelia had feared that Garfield's anxieties had been the consensus of opinion inside sanctuary. And this man in front of her is saying things that are validating that fear. Villager, we could perhaps come into Roswell-sama's care outside, but how would that differ from our present circumstances? Plainly said, we are more anxious than hopeful. The change frightens us. Amelia, Villager, however. Amelia nods and edges on lowering her gaze, when the man's statement stops her. The man straightens his posture before continuing, his expression tense. Villager, everyone has heard Garfield's, has heard the boy's voice. Amelia says nothing. Villager, we know what that trooper was thinking and how he felt. And know the exchanges between him and that black-haired young man, and between yourself and Roswell-sama afterwards. His back still straight, the man's expression twists. Regretful and near to tears. It sticks in Amelia's chest. Villager, I sincerely speaking, thought it pathetic. That a 14-year-old boy was so worried for us, and that a child under 20 years old was howling at us like that. And even though Roswell-sama stated that you could not do it, we listened to your words as well. And so, Amelia-sama. Amelia, yes. Villager, no matter what the results may be, and no matter what may occur after this, I believe your effort to challenge the trial incredible. Venerable. Not all of us share that sentiment, and not even I have entirely accepted you yet. But I request that we may witness it to completion. Witness what? No need to ask. Bathed in his willful gaze, Amelia looks at those behind him, the crowd of people who are accepting him as their representative, and nods. Amelia, understood. I'll be sure to end everything safely, and you'll listen to what I have to say. Villager, yes. That is a promise. And to think of judging someone off hearsay, without ever interacting with them, we're the last people who should be doing that, huh? Wah. The man slumps his shoulders. When Louis pinches his hip from behind. The man springs up and turns around in objections, but Louis just snorts a laugh. Louis, you sure went on a while, sure are serious, aren't you? And you fell back into talking casual halfway through. 'Cause you ain't used to doing this. Villager, my apologies. Louis, anyway, there's what we're thinking. Apologies fair the meddler. With that charming little exchange, Louis gets the man to stand down. Amelia takes a deep breath, something other than oxygen puffing up her chest. Louis is giving her graces, and the people of Sanctuary have come to see her efforts through. Who could estimate how greatly it reassured her? Amelia, thank you, Louis-san. Now, I know I can try so hard. Louis, I see. Well, good. Next one should be the last trial. Amelia, yes, it is. I'm going to challenge it right away. With the strength they've given her, Amelia turns around to face the tomb. But halfway through her turn she freezes, remembering something, and glances back to Louis. Amelia, actually, Louis-san, have you seen Ram? I'd like to tell her that I finished the second trial, but... Louis, Ram's left here to attend to some business. But she's praying your good luck. You have your tasks, and I have mine. Let us see them both achieved. It sounds like Ram, and even though she knows it's just a report, it makes her want to give a wry smile. Ram's task where and with whom will she achieve it? Amelia feels something astir in her chest, but she consciously suppresses it. Ram is believing in her. And so, she will believe in Ram. Just how Subaru and the others made a path for her, she wants to proceed from their efforts and make a path as well. Amelia, I'm going. Lewis nods in reply, and the villagers' jabbering sees her off. Filled with even stronger resolve than the first or second times, Amelia steps into the tomb. Where? Face the impending calamity, the final trial, approaches. Ram feels how her heartbeat grows a touch distant in her chest. She has never been bathed in such hostility from this person ever before. Physical contact with him, exchanging words with him, being ordered by him. Those things were the epitome and joy for Ram, and her meaning in life. And so the fact that she feels girlish elation even when he regards her with hostility overjoys her. Who dare you show yourself here? Mutters the tall man opposite Ram, glaring at her. His tantalizing voice makes a sweet ache run through her brain. Just by having his heterochromatic gaze on her, everything below her waist feels like it could shatter. Although, this is naturally not the time to display such weak and girly things. A woman like that would nearly be deemed useless and discarded. Nua then, what could you have come home here for? Ram, that is simple. She replies as usual, her face expressionless and manner tranquil. With her pink hair swaying, Ram draws her wand from beneath her skirt, before pointing it at the beauty before her, pointing it at her dearly respected master. Ram, I have come to snatch you away from your witch delusions. Anne confesses that she is here to burn her loved one, consumed by an insane love, with her own. Chapter 125B, starting as revenge. The wind rages. A single, strong gust whips violently at their hair and clothes as they face each other. The setting is the outskirts of Sanctuary, near the hidden house where young Garfield and Frederica lived, in an unpopulated and unremarkable meadow. There are no residencies anywhere near here, and even if there were, nobody would possibly pass by at this juncture. All of the people of Sanctuary should be busy waiting for Amelia's trial results. To cheer Amelia on, and for Ram to exploit to clear out the crowd. Roswell, Delusion, USA. Ram does feel somewhat guilty about using Amelia like this, but refocuses her attention as she sees Roswell's lips relax into a smile. Roswell sweeps his long, navy hair down his back, then closes one eye and glares at Ram with the yellow. Roswell, when you are the one saying it, aware of my feelings and my goals, it's quite the sad thing to hear. Ram, I have simply kept silent, but always thought so. As I naturally would. Roswell, natural, I do suppose so. From your perspective, it was a life of prolonged prostration and disgrace. Ram. Ram responds to Roswell's shrug by lowering her gaze. She more or less understands what he's trying to say. Of course she would. Ram has always been paying attention to Roswell. She understands to a painful extent how he, recipient of her love and loyalty, would perceive her allegiance to him. Roswell, so, the first thing you do once unfettered from the contract is stray from my plans. That would be what you did in supporting Subaru-kun and aiding in subjugating Garfield, correct? Ram, it had carried dual meanings, both for my objectives and to rectify Garf's idiocy. Were I not there, I suspect that they wouldn't have managed anything. Roswell, it does feel that everything worked out in the end. Subaru-kun makes some rather thoughtless bets when so many precious things are involved and at stake. I would never even think to make such an idiotic gamble for my precious one. It's something of a sermon, cynical about Subaru's decision and insistent that his own ideas are the rational ones. And honestly, there is nothing about Roswell's statement that Ram can refute. Many of Subaru's actions were utterly unplanned and haphazard. He had the luck of heaven on his side for the whole Garfield affair, including how Ram participated in it. Ram's opinion of Subaru being a man of only good timing hasn't changed at all. Should you focus only on the question of achieving a goal, then Roswell's ideas are far superior. Provided that the gospel can be trusted. Ram won't make gambles, because what came of prioritizing accuracy was the gospel. Roswell, exactly. Although you seemed not to trust it, and have always been adverse to it. Again, inevitable. You've been praying for its writ to divert at any point that it possibly could. Ram, I will not deny that. Cannot deny that. Ram truly was adverse to the gospel. But there's a huge discrepancy between Roswell's conception and Ram's real motives as to why. And it racked Ram with a sorrow that she never let show on her face. Roswell, do you remember? The contract that we formed, with the gospel as our intermediary? Ram, that, provided that history is moving as stated in your gospel, I wager my life to serve you. In exchange? Roswell, Should time proceed down a path diverged from the Gospel's writ, my goals face a standstill. Should I lose sight of my goals, my life loses all meaning. You are permitted to do whatever you wish with my husk. Ram, your life or death rests upon me. Roswell, that way is the contract. With that, Roswell draws a black book from his breast pocket. He cradles the thick tome close, stroking its cover as he gives a sigh. Roswell, it must have been truly long and painful for you. Ram. Roswell, after all, you had to spend your life swearing reluctant loyalty to a man partly responsible for the destruction of your birthplace. Contrary to your prayers, your heart delights when with me. It must have been agony. My deepest apologies for being so apathetic. Roswell spins spiteful words to wound Ram. Partly responsible for the destruction of your birthplace. Hearing that sentence, pain and memories of her hometown and family in flames pass through her chest. The ONI have a low population even for demi-humans, but in exchange, possesses incredible strength. Ram's race had gathered up their scant numbers and established a village deep in the mountains, then were exterminated overnight between fire and knives, leaving Ram and as the only survivors. She had formed the contract with Roswell the morning after the fire, as she gazed dazedly over the scorched village. Ram accepted the contract for the sake of survival. Without ever knowing anything, and equally without Ram ever telling anything. Ram? Feeling an inexplicable sense of awryness and a faint aching in her head, Ram furrows her brows. She feels that there is an unnatural vacuum somewhere in her memories. That there's something that has to be there, but it's being obfuscated by a network of lies, telling her that no such thing existed. Even though Ram's memories make no sense without it. Roswell, the despicable longing within you, and the lust for revenge that your true heart fostered. Even with these contrary desires squabbling within you, you proved a truly excellent pawn. Just how extensively have I used you, with your obedient conformity to the gospel? While Ram searches her memories to try and find what is off, Roswell continues his speech. This isn't the time for this, she thinks as she aborts her search for the vacuum and faces Roswell, who speaks sweetly as he praises her loyalty. But the glances he sends Ram begin to adopt another kind of sentiment. Roswell, but who would have thought that you'd betray me and ally with Subaru Cohen? Do you comprehend how much grief I have suffered because of this? Ram, I have not defied the terms of our contract. Should the world proceed on a course differing from the gospel, I will adhere not to your words, but to my own heart. The contract, should I have disobeyed it, then I would not have escaped unharmed. Putting her hand to her chest, Ram asserts the legitimacy of her actions. This contract between Ram and Roswell was, naturally, not any simple spoken word promise. Spells are engraved on both of their souls, and they will suffer more than appropriate penalty should they defy the terms. Since this has not happened, Ram's heart has not defied the contract. But Roswell gives a big shake of his head. Roswell, what is what I'm referring to? Considering that you have not been punished for disobeying the contract in this situation, your soul believes without the slightest of doubt that you are adhering to the contract. And I must find that a terribly unfortunate judgment. Ram, what might you mean? Roswell, it's simple. The gospel's writ has not diverged yet. The contract between you and I truly reaches its terminus further from now, in the future. Asserts Roswell, his voice low as he looks Ram in the eye. The statement makes even expressionless Ram's cheeks tense. What she is hearing differs greatly from what the contract's spell acknowledged. Even with all these conditions in place, Roswell's stubborn heart is not surrendering in the least. Ram, the writ has not diverged? Barusa will not challenge the tomb to liberate sanctuary, and Emilia-sama is not doing anything to bring about snowfall. How could you state that the writ has not diverged in this situation, Roswell-sama? Has something happened? Roswell, nothing at all, it's the same as ever. While true, neither of the things I stated have come into fruition, they still may yet. Ram, that will not happen. Barusu has left sanctuary, and Emilia-sama is defeating the trials. To then state that matters will resolve to fit the writ, is this the floundering of an obstinate child? Roswell, I am quite a mature adult and so can deny being an obstinate child, but I can't deny that I am floundering. Fifth at here is my useless floundering. An endless, over 4-century-long, your perpetual stretch of floundering. Changing his course, Roswell asserts that his own actions are floundering. The clown laughs from the back of his throat, his expression twisted in insane elation as he slaps his knees, praising the perfection of it all. Roswell, floundering, exactly, it's floundering. There is the punchline. Is there any word to more accurately describe this obsession of mine? Nuopup, there isn't. Floundering, ahaya, wonderful. It had never even occurred to me. Ram, Roswell-sama. Roswell, a man floundering in dependent obsession, and a servant whose lust for revenge against a madman has morphed into loyalty to him. Our circumstances are truly crooked and comedic. However, calling my actions floundering will do nothing to change my intentions. You have acted prematurely. Roswell's insane smile disappears as he presents the gospel to Ram, so that she can see it. Roswell, no matter what you may believe, the contract remains unchanged. Until she overcomes the tomb's trials, nothing has diverged from the writ that Natsuki Subaru will liberate. Sanctuary. And even should she not bring snowfall, no deviation will come to the writ provided that I bring snowfall. Ram. Roswell, you may appeal to the terms of the contract, but I also act in equal compliance. And so we sit upon parallels. The time has not come yet for you to enact your revenge. Roswell lightly tosses the book, catching it in his other hand before stashing it in his breast pocket. Flickering flames arise atop his outstretched right arm. Roswell shows off how the flames change color from red to blue to green, narrowing his eyes. Roswell, you are still subject to the terms of your employment. You have acted impertinently as my servant and so face punishment. If you had truly believed that the world diverged from the gospel, then all you had to do was wait for 2 more days. I would have presented myself to you without resistance. Hastiness serves well for nothing. Roswell shakes his head in lamentation. Roswell, I do understand your desire to destroy me as soon as conceivably possible. Ram, so you truly do understand nothing. Roswell? Ram closes her eyes, murmuring feebly in reply to Roswell's cynical smile. Beneath her eyelids there rests a wave of complex emotion, never to show on her face. By closing her eyes, Ram can see her own way of life, which she pledged to never show to anybody. She raises her head. Mana converges at the tip of her wand, poised this entire time. Ram, there is no meaning in having you should it be after the contract is fulfilled. After you've been destroyed, there is no meaning at all. Roswell, come. Ram, as you wish. Flames of vibrant hue crash into invisible blades of wind. With waves of heat surging through their sanctuary, the ONI and the warlock begin their crooked dance. Amelia perceives the exact instant that the trial starts. Her 5 senses vanish and she forfeits the general concept of having a body. Her sensory organs depart from her control, leaving her as only a mind floating helplessly in space, which is what she is right now, only a soul. This one obviously differs in nature from the previous trials. Amelia. She can't speak. She has no mouth. No eyes either, but strangely enough, she can perceive the world. Or no. You could say that she perceives the world, but it's not such a coherent thing yet that you could confidently call it a world. Amelia's consciousness floats in a void of darkness. She can regardless recognize her own self because of the many lights speckling this dark. The dim lights come in many colors, splayed about in considerable number. They resemble the glow of a minor spirit, but they give a decisively different vibe from the living spirits. They may resemble minor spirits, but their light more closely matches that from a spellstone. Regardless, being that these surrounding lights have scattered around to circle Amelia, she feels that she will not lose sight of the world. Amelia. Surrounded by lights and relieved that she has not been left alone, Amelia starts feeling progressively confused about the utter lack of happenings here. The dim lights simply float there in their positions, not doing anything at all. Echidna has been showing up at the start of these trials to explain what has been going on, but this time she isn't there to act as a guide. Time simply passes on by, though Amelia cannot tell what the time disparity is between the inside and outside of the tomb. She knows that doing nothing will lead to nothing. Amelia? I have to do something, thinks Amelia, and a change occurs. Amelia's consciousness, formerly fixed in place and immobile, transfers over to another spot close enough to the lights that she could probably touch them. She has no body, but she can touch light. It's a weird sensation. But she has no other way to express it. If she did, then she might simply be invisible to herself, and instead have a body constructed of primal magic. She may just be OD. If her OD is what holds her consciousness and soul, then that does somewhat explain her current condition. Reaching some amount of agreement, Amelia thinks to validate her ideas by heading for one of the lights. There have to be more than 20 of these scattered lights. With no particular reason for it, Amelia reaches out for the light that glows a dim silver. And the instant her OD touches the light she sees it. Hate, absolutely hate you. Me, I loathe you. I really do. All of it, entirely true. Ever since we first met. I've downright hated you. Amelia. Immediately following the voice, a vivid scene slips into Amelia's perception. Beneath an overwhelmingly giant sun, in a burnt field, standing beside a massive and dilapidated building, bathed in crimson sunlight, is a girl with blood wetting her silver hair. Amelia. It's her fully grown self, who she has just witnessed in the second trial. And she looks woeful as she stands before the ruin, assaulting someone with her words. Amelia, I've had the thought countless times and denied it countless times, but yes, a nightmare really did catch up to me. And so I'll say it. Amelia. Amelia, maybe we really shouldn't have met after all. A tear streams down from the corner of her amethyst eye. It trails down to her cheek, falls from her chin, and the instant before it strikes the ground, the world bursts into nothing. Amelia. Swallow her breath. As just an OD, she's incapable of something so dexterous. All Amelia can do is accept the scene she just witnessed. What was that light? What was this scene? That had definitely been Amelia, but she doesn't remember this at all. Or perhaps that had been an impossible scene, like the one in the second trial. Amelia. It's not, thinks Amelia. She calms her chaotic mind, searches through her memory, and remembers the words she heard in the tomb when entering the third trial. First face your past, witness the uncommentable present. And now the third one. Yes, it was, face the impending calamity. Impending calamity. So, the future? She had seen the past and a present, and for the finish, here's the future. So this is the baptism that the trial shows those challenging these alternate worlds? Which means that Amelia will eventually meet this future. Where she is in such a dismal place, crying as she conveys her regret for meeting somebody. Amelia. Amelia uses her feelings of denial to dispel her unease, recovering a superficial level of calm. But once her mind registers the darkness again, another change occurs. The silver light that Amelia's OD had just touched disappears. A vacuum fills the space that the light once occupied, the thing now missing. Amelia is puzzled by this, but promptly realizes what it means. If each of these lights represents a future, then Amelia needs to touch every one of these futures before she will be freed. If this is a trial, then she will have to make some kind of choice after she's seen all the futures. If Echidna is waiting anywhere, then she'll be waiting there. Meaning, Amelia must witness over 20 futures. Amelia. Will they be differing futures, or all fragments of the same future she just saw? While feeling her non-existent heart wilting, Amelia reaches for the neighboring light. This one is blue, reminiscent of something vast and deep, like an ocean. You're absolutely right. They were our enemy, and the wound was deep. If we withdrew here, being that neither of us can heal, maybe we wouldn't have managed any rescue. In that case. But they were just a kid. And isn't that enough? Again, the scene changes. Now she witnesses a thick forest, with two people standing at the edge of a sheer cliff. She can't see their faces. But she knows both of their voices. One is very familiar, and thought the other one isn't, she does remember it. The two are facing off before the cliff, one of them kneeling, the other looking down at the kneeling party. Both of them look horribly morose, Amelia feels. You are a hero. A hero's all you can ever be. Why, thank you so very much for your help. One silhouette reaches their hand out to the other, who turns their face away and imparts those cavalier words of gratitude. This feels like a definite farewell between these two people. A goodbye laced with only irreparable woe and disappointment. The world begins to fade again, and Amelia's consciousness returns to the dark space. Amelia. Amelia had not been present in that scene at all. She knew who the people in it were, but it feels awry that she herself was absent. She's meant to be facing these lights while conceiving of them as futures. So why on earth is it showing her futures where she is absent, or scenes that she will not be present for? Is she being shown how her decisions may affect the futures of those around her? If so, then these scenes only present one possibility out of many. It's telling her to witness how her decisions will impact those other than herself. Amelia. The blue light vanishes as the silver light did. 20 lights still remain. Each one of them carries the weight of a choice. Steeling herself for this, Amelia reaches out to see the outcome of her decisions through. In the next future, and the future after that, Amelia's decisions await. With a swish of her wand, she creates and unleashes a blade of wind. Invisible and inaudible, the whirling blade closes in on its target's throat as an assassin. Roswell, is that all? But Roswell easily evades the imperceptible attack by nimbly jumping away. Of course he would. He is the head of the renowned Mathers family of sorcerers, a rare breed of magician proficient in all 6 classes of magic. For Roswell L. Mathers, perceiving others' manipulation of mana is child's play. Even wind magic with its invisible blades is as visible to Roswell as fire in the night. Roswell, my turn. With a swing of Roswell's arm, 3 fireballs of differing hue rain down upon Ram. A red fire, a blue fire, and a green fire. All three of them pursue Ram when she leaps backward, quite annoying in how they tail her. She runs backwards, her breath slightly ragged, as she unleashes another spike of magic. The wind blade strikes the three flames, which Ram thought would snuff them out, but instead they each react in differing ways. Ram. The instant the red flame takes the hit, like taking a bath of oil, it combusts into a pillar of fire. The blue flame is easily sliced to pieces by wind, its embers shooting out in all directions. The green flame looks to be engulfed in wind, when it then absorbs the wind mana and changes its shape, morphing into a snake of green fire that slithers across the ground in pursuit of Ram. The fire pillar blazes at Ram, who kicks off from a massive tree to avoid the blue flames, and then tumbles across the ground to dodge the green flame's fangs before again striking the fire snake with her wind blade. The snake bursts into small flares, which scatter over the meadow to smolder. Roswell, oh my, that was only one exchange of magic, and yet you seem quite wounded. Ram, ha, ha. Roswell, if you acted with belief that you could win, then I must say that your estimations are are naive. Why yes, I am currently devoting a large allotment of magic to the algorithm to manipulate the weather. However, I am not so careless to accordingly neglect what is at hand. Roswell tilts his head as he watches Ram, her shoulders heaving with every breath, and spreads flames to encircle them. He creates the three hues of flame again, which take the form of giant fireballs in his hand before moving to revolve around him. Their numbers compound with every revolution, gaining speed. It only takes a few seconds before Roswell is veiled in a vortex of chromatic fireballs. Roswell, this is from one flame of each color. 10 flames of each type for a total of 30 fireballs. You won't manage to dispose of them all with your current abilities. Ram. Roswell, although, were you intending to confront me while my combat strength was minimized, it was the epitome of foolishness to aid in the fight against Garfield. My abilities may be diminished, but that means nothing when your abilities are diminished as well. I can tell from the mana overflowing from you. You transformed, didn't you? Asks Roswell, his voice low. Ram settles her breathing and answers only with a glance. Perhaps having expected no reply, Roswell shrugs. Roswell, of course you would turn out like this, should you transform without my aid. You may challenge me with only the slightest of mana, but you'll approach your limit within a minute of fighting. If we view this in terms of you expending your best efforts for the sake of your goal, it's an affront to the eyes. Ram, an affront to the eyes, you say? Roswell, indeed, an affront to the eyes. You did state this before. When I said that you needed only wait 2 days to see if the world had utterly diverged from the gospel, you stated that would be pointless. I had been wondering what you meant at first, but I've contemplated it, and come to a solution. Her breathing is calming down, but neither her stamina nor magic is replenishing. Roswell knows this, and so he is holding off on attacking Ram to have this conversation. It's another story if she starts being an obstacle, but Roswell doesn't intend to kill Ram. And Ram has to feel that this complacency of his is an insult. Roswell, if we take your goal to be revenge, then the answer is simple. You may brutalize me when I am a cripple, but that will not appease you. That is the only reason I can conceive that you would abandon your chance for definite revenge by challenging me now. It is only when you slay me, partway through my own goals, that you will achieve revenge. Ram. Roswell, that was partly my mistake for pressuring you into a choice at a critical moment when you were still young. It may have panicked you, after time passed, and you realized at fact. And so you've run amok to ensure the opportunity does not escape you. Though, you can see how that turned out. Ram, A sound slips from Ram's throat. A hoarse, breathy sigh. Roswell's odd-colored eyes fixate on Ram, making sure not to miss a single one of her actions. With that gaze upon her, Ram thinks back on everything she's done for the last half of her life. Although she always knew it, recognizing it again, after all this time, does prick her. Feeling the pain, Ram opens her mouth. Wide, so wide, as she looks up at the sky. Ram, ahahahahahaha. Roswell, Ram? They're mirroring each other. As she thinks of how Roswell chortled earlier, the thrill only escalates inside her. Her reasoning is entirely different to Roswell's, but yes indeed this is amusing. She has to laugh. And of course she would. Because, in the end. Ram, after all the interactions, after all of that contact, you still haven't realized how the other party feels. He's dim, he's insensitive, no, it's something on an entirely different level. He's stubborn. He is fixated. He has determined that this would never happen, and so not moved an inch. To him, it's inconceivable that the passage of time would see feelings that started as revenge transform into yearning. Ram, I have been by your side, because of the contract. Roswell, yes, indeed you have. In that smoldering village, you and I formed a contract of vassalage. I still remember how, even without your horn, your eyes blazed wet with fury. And so I sealed that away through the contract, and redirected your vehemence into loyalty. Although, I did believe that a day like this would someday come. Ram, you're right. You were right. I wished to murder you. But you stole that opportunity from me, and I proceeded to spend my days in the mansion with this inexplicable loyalty, and... Roswell, unfettered from the contract, you have today determined to sate your desire for Rev. Roswell is lining up his theories. It's hilarious. It's truly as if he pays no attention to anything except his own feelings, she thinks. Ram, Roswell-sama, I am in love with you. Roswell. Ram, I wound up falling in love with you. That is why there is no purpose in attaining you once you are broken. That is not the Roswell-sama who I desire. Roswell's eyes shoot open as his body freezes rigid. He is stunned, as if he had truly, seriously not anticipated this in the slightest. He promptly shakes his head, attempting to come up with words, but his lips merely quiver with nothing meaningful coming out of them. Ram, is something the matter? Roswell, of course there, are you mocking me? After all of this, mocking me? You recognize that your strength is too lacking and so are attempting to shake me mentally, and... Ram, how could I possibly believe that such wiles would work on you, Roswell-sama? I am simply stating what I truly feel. Roswell, that only makes it even less conceivable. Yells Roswell, stomping at the ground. Reflecting his agitated mental state, the shroud of fireballs flies into disarray. They soon come to a halt, floating at various points around the surroundings as Roswell glares at Ram. Roswell, you love me? What on earth are you saying? You detest me. I'm a man you detest. I'm a man partially responsible for the destruction of your birthplace. You're meant to hate me so much you like to murder me. Ram, I did it first. But not now. Now, I love you. Roswell, this idiotic. Who would think such a cheap? Feelings that started as revenge must proceed to be revenge. Feelings that become yearning must only ever start as yearning. Roswell stubbornly believes that people's desires and feelings cannot change. And so he cannot believe that Ram has changed her mind so dramatically as to alter her way of life. Roswell, what about your revenge? Did you not pledge for it? Did you not face your ashen village and swear upon the souls of your dead brethren that you would accomplish revenge? Ram, I do think it wrong toward my brethren, and it does pain my heart to think of my birthplace. However, I cannot change that I have fallen in love. I am prioritizing my own feelings over those of the dead. Roswell. Ram, and you are not my direct foe, Roswell-sama. Should my lust for revenge obscure my vision, that would be the more shameful course. Would be my excuse. Roswell is utterly lost for words. Understand the situation right now. Would probably be an unreasonable demand. Roswell is a man who has gone for a very, very long time while sticking to his feelings. Wholeheartedly, persistently devoting his love to one single person, doing everything he could to make his wishes come true. His emotions, his heart, and his belief that things ought to be this way are far too strong. And so he cannot understand feelings that change over time, or understand that strength. There's really nothing she can do about the fact that she finds even this aspect of him darling. Ram, I shall never allow you to become an invalid. Roswell, you're contradicting yourself. No matter what your feelings are, no, doubly so presuming that they're exactly what you stated. I don't understand why you are challenging me now. If the gospel diverges, then I lose my purpose in life and mentally suffer. You are aware of this, so why? Ram, because this is the moment. Barusu, Emilia-sama, Garf, now that all of them have brought your heart close to wavering, I face my single and only moment of opportunity. So long as the contract persists between Roswell and Ram, Ram cannot defy Roswell. That Ram is currently disobeying Roswell is because her soul has judged that she is unfettered from the contract, as Roswell pointed out. But is she truly? If one party believes that they fit the conditions, then they are exempted as a target for the contract. Does the system of contracts truly possess such a vague and loose set of judgment criteria? And so Ram pleads that she is not the only one who believes that the requirement to disregard the contract, the divergence of the world, and the gospel, has been met. That some corner of Roswell's mind has registered the same thing. That this situation has arisen accordingly. Roswell looks utterly confused as Ram turns to face him, holds her breath, and dashes forth. She draws her wand, wringing out the dregs of mana she has to cast a spell. Roswell. It's useless. Ram's actions lead Roswell to dispel his turmoil and order his floating fireballs to strike and stall her. But not a single one of the fireballs hits her as she keeps low to the ground, their heat doing nothing more than singeing her skin. Ram has fulfilled the criteria needed to follow the gospel's future until now, and he cannot determine whether to discard her. The fact that he cannot perceive Ram's designs also plays into it. Perhaps he might even regret killing her. If so, then that alone is enough to elate her so magnificently that she forgets her previous melancholy. Ram, el Fula. She concentrates the powers of wind, invisible destruction detonating before her. Roswell has prepared himself in fighting posture, but he is not her target. She aims for the ground beneath it, rupturing it open and sending a great explosion of dirt to drown out his field of vision. Roswell, do you think this smokescreen will? Ram. One sweep of Roswell's arm shatters the momentary veil of dirt into pieces. The barrier fades to nothing, and as she watches it, Ram gives a sharp exhale and concentrates power to her forehead. Ram, GHH. Agony. Her vision drowns in scarlet as bloody tears spill from her bloodshot eyes. Her muscles, her bones, both of them creak as she hears the noise of her tendons ripping. She ignores all of it, gritting her teeth so hard that she shatters them as she steps forth. The ground beneath her shatters, and in that instant, Ram has transcended the limits of mortals. Roswell has batted the screen of dirt away and Ram soars at him faster than a nanosecond. He notices Ram, but before his eyes can even shoot open, she moves. Her outstretched arm reaches for Roswell's torso, and he swallows his breath as he realizes that her hand is contacting his chest. Transformation. Nothing else could have fostered this advance in Ram's abilities. Although it is only momentary, Ram's strength currently exceeds the limits of the human body. Roswell must realize that it was his blunder not to consider that she could shatter his ribcage and pop his heart. However, Roswell, at? When the shock and pain fails to come, Roswell can only blubber in astonishment. In the blink of an eye, Ram has skidded to a stop about 10 meters away from Roswell. She faces down, and vomits blood as she falls to her knees. Roswell furrows his brows, unable to comprehend the purpose behind Ram's actions. But once he sees what is in Ram's hands, his expression instantly shifts. Roswell, that. Ram, to me, this is the root of all evil. His face pale, Roswell moves to start sprinting over. Ram responds merely by glancing up before, without any hesitation of all, giving a swing of her arm. And the gospel in her hands goes flying into one of the smoldering green flames. Roswell. Roswell screeches mutely, but still the blaze consumes the gospel and bursts even hotter. Alongside a satisfying boom, the ancient book transforms into a pile of green ash. Ram watches on, as if she has been yearning to see this for a very long time. Ram, now, finally. Ram sighs in satisfaction, her cheeks growing flush. The fireball thrown out of rage pierces through her petite frame in the very next instant. Chapter 126B, will next meet at a tea party. She views the future. Gone without, you cannot even wield a sword. Thief. Witness. The victor remains I. Subaru, Emilianissima, I know you must be so tired. I'm sorry. But I'm going to wind up being a burden too. I'm sorry. All the thanks I'd wanted to say could never be enough. With every colored light she touches, Emilia sees a different future. To think that someone I wanted to kill so much was actually a kind person, what an incredible nightmare. There exist feelings which mustn't be spoken. Does it satisfy you, now that they have come to light? Does this make you feel that you've seen your promise through? If it does, then I was better off bound and dead in that cave. If I was going to see this dawn, then I should have just offed myself sooner. Shit. God, I'm sorry. I'm weak and so this. God, I'm sorry. I couldn't make the kill, God, I'm sorry. Now we'll always be alone forever. God, I'm sorry for being so weak. Woe, ire, death, rebirth, farewells, meetings, the future comes to her in many forms. Yes, my dear grandchild, must have grown up well. I shall never perish to such nonsense as a curse. It's simply that I realized something. That along the path up to today, I hadn't been walking alone. How come there's no soul inside? Must the future be despair? Is there nothing but sorrow and suffering? Just as promised, fucking killin' yer. Yeah. Natsuki Subaru. Am I being so covetous? Am I saying anything so indulgent? Don't anybody die, don't anybody weep, what is so complicated about it? After all, we must bleed ourselves to our very last drop to atone, yes? Yes? Right and wrong and good and evil's all a bunch of bullshit. You're stopping right there. Say it's dragon or say it's witch, if you're blocking the way then we're gonna smash you. Then, was it wrong of her to choose this path? Was she mistaken to wish for any favors? I believe that to pray for favors is hubris. Prayers are for when you seek forgiveness. Forgiveness. In the final world of light, a girl that Emilia has never seen awake and speaking talks. I'd like to have a proper conversation with her, she thinks. The sentiment proves more than enough for her to deny the rejection of everything. Amelia's vision clears, and she realizes that she is in a breezy meadow. A hillock with a white table. Amelia herself sits upon a white chair, unable to remember what happened only a few seconds ago. But she does know that she is in a dream world. Amelia, Echidna? If anyone is going to greet her at the end of the trial, then it's going to be the Thing's supervisor, Echidna. Amelia casts her gaze around in search of her. But even though she can see this field stretch onto the horizon, she sights no shelters or anything indicating the presence of people. And should she leave the table to go walking around, she might lose the table and never find it again. She's definitely right here in this spot, but it strangely feels like she might fall off the horizon. Amelia takes deep breaths to calm herself down, and decides to start moving if nobody's around. Perhaps there's an exit somewhere. She'll find that, and get out of here. She's got nothing to gain by wasting time here. It's been like this forever, but why is it that these situations always wind up being my post, I can't say I'm thrilled with it. Amelia, AUH. Seeing the ball of hair that suddenly appears across the table from her, Amelia freezes. She stares at this thing before her in shock, still halfway into standing up. And gulps. An understandable reaction, and the correct one, Hugh. The kid from before must have been a tad obtuse, Amelia. Every word out this person's mouth comes mixed with a gloomy sigh. She is a rather listless woman with overwhelmingly long magenta hair, wearing a black robe. Her comments are not thorny at all, and she looks relaxed as anything. But Amelia regardless feels a pressure so intense it's practically strangling her. If this person felt like it, then Amelia's head would be vanished in an instant. Amelia has regained her past, and can now manipulate such a vast quantity of mana that her body cannot contain it all. Even though she has gained a massive boost in her capabilities as a solo fighter, she feels that she has no chance against this woman. She'd kill Amelia as easily as swatting a fly, and Amelia knows this. Woman, you don't need to be so wary, Hugh. I'm not looking to hurt you, or to get hurt, Since that'd be a drag, Hugh. But Echidna just doesn't want to see you, so she forced me here. Amelia, I see. Amelia gives a timid nod. The pressure wreathed around this woman shows no signs of letting up. Nothing has changed about her ability to easily decimate Amelia. But if nothing is going to change about the fact that the woman can kill Amelia whenever she wants, then that'll stay the same regardless of whether she's scared or not. Amelia inhales, holds her breath, exhales. Doing this, she forces herself to calm down. Amelia, you're here in Echidna's place, so you're also a witch? Woman. I see, so you're braver than I thought, Hugh. That you're not timid during the critical moments, might be you taking after your mother, Hugh. Amelia, you know about my mother? Woman, I can't tell you anything, but yes, The unexpected relation makes Amelia gulp, but the woman looks utterly exhausted after making that comment. Amelia could try to probe into it, but she probably wouldn't get anything. Thinking to herself, someday, Amelia decides to temporarily shelve the topic of her mother. She has seen her past, seen an impossible future, and now Fortuna and Juice's light remains shining in her heart. For now, that's more than enough. Amelia, what would you like me to call you? Woman, it's nice when children don't throw tantrums, Hugh. I'd like Typhon to get a lesson from you, My name's Sekhmet, Hugh. As you've guessed, I'm the Witch of Sloth, Sekhmet leans her body onto the table, looking up as she gives a faint smile. The bags under her eyes and the unhealthy-looking pallor to her skin are something of a concern, but her features are attractive, and she is a beautiful woman. Still, the word witch and the ghastly aura she emanates do indicate that she is definitely not anyone ordinary. Sekhmet, I really couldn't care less about how our names as witches are treated in the present, so that doesn't matter, Hugh. I just want to get this request done with, and settle down into self-indulgent slumber, Hugh. Amelia, if it's such a bother for you, could no one else have done it? Echidna doesn't have to be the one if she doesn't want to, but aren't there any other witches? Sekhmet, you're not going to get a conversation out of anyone else, Hugh. Minerva's the only one who could manage an actual conversation here, and she can't show her face to you, Hugh. Amelia, Minerva. Sekhmet speaks with awful rhythm thanks to her pauses to sigh. But hearing that she offers a better conversation than the other witches makes Amelia terrified of imagining what the others are like. But even that sentiment is overpowered by the strong feelings Amelia has for the word Minerva. Amelia, Minerva. Mutters Amelia to herself as she tilts her head. The word feels horribly nostalgic, something that would stimulate her memories. But that said, Amelia cannot remember hearing it in any of her memories up until now, or in any of her recovered memories either. But it's a mysterious name that could evoke thoughts of someone very close to her. Sekhmet, no sense talking about someone who isn't here, Anyway, I'm just here to pass a message along from Echidna, Hugh. Then I'm leaving it up to you what ideas you come up with to end the trial, ha. Pretty easy job for me, Hugh. Amelia, thank you for your efforts. Sekhmet, I'll pretend that worked, ha. Now, listen closely, Hugh. Sekhmet calls out to the brooding Amelia, and lies her head sideways upon the table. She gazes up at Amelia, and with a sigh, sets her right hand on the table too. Sekhmet, in the third trial, ha, you would have seen the future, Hugh. Those futures are possibilities of what will happen, ha, in this future where you decide to overcome this tomb, Hugh. Amelia, possible futures. Sekhmet, there's a chance they'll all happen, ha, and a chance none'll happen, Hugh. Though, considering Echidna's personality, ha, even I can tell that the futures you saw weren't the nicest ones, Hugh. What do the other witches think of Echidna? At the very least, it seems like Sekhmet considers Echidna as someone mean. Amelia can't exactly say much on that. Sekhmet's opinion of Echidna is actually a little worse than what Amelia figures, but it's difficult to demand a worse appraisal than mean witch from Amelia. Sekhmet, the future splits into infinite pathways, and so derives possibilities, ha. But the futures you saw were all seeds thick with tragedy, Hugh. After they sprout and bud, what blossoms will come of them? Ha. Are you prepared to willfully walk a path of poison blooms that may leave everyone unhappy? Hugh. Amelia. Keeping silent, Amelia gazes earnestly at Sekhmet. Sekhmet looks fatigued after giving such a long speech. But she soon furrows her brows when she notices Amelia's gaze. Sekhmet, I'm pretty sure that I already gave you the question, ha. Amelia, ha, what? That was the question? I answer that, and the trial ends? Sekhmet, that's what it'd be, Hugh. Though, considering your goal, you could say that the trial was over the instant that you managed to get here, ha. Sekhmet makes it sound like a free round. Amelia gives a wry grin. Amelia doesn't mean any ill. But the issue is just so banal it surprised her. After all, it's obvious how Amelia would respond. Amelia, worlds that end tragically for everybody. No, I'm not prepared to see those at all. She has to think of memories that rip at her chest, that claw at her herd. In that world of darkness, amid those colored lights, Amelia heard their wails times upon times. Amelia, these are futures where everyone might meet a sad end. In the dark world before this, I saw a lot of them. Where everyone was crying, suffering, angry. I don't know the details of what happened, but I don't want to see a future like that. Sekhmet, but I can assure that if you continue on the path you're on, Hugh, it's highly likely for such things to happen, ha. Is that going to make you flee? Hugh. Amelia, no. That's going to make me face it. Sekhmet narrows her eyes as Amelia shakes her head and puffs out her chest. The overwhelming pressure threatens to consume her, but Amelia's spirit will not yield. If she comes close to losing heart, memories of her mother and father support her. If she comes close to giving up, she has someone who will encourage her to keep going. Amelia, we'll sprint so fast we dodge the sad futures. But if that isn't going to work, we'll ride our momentum to soar over them. If people fall in the jump, we'll put in our all and pull them back up. And if we keep doing this, we'll wipe away every single tear. Sekhmet, you sure sound confident for being so reckless, ha. When you merely talk about ideals and what's convenient for you, you'll break the instant that you slip up, Hugh. You don't think that'll happen? Ha. Amelia, if I were alone, it might. Amelia responds fearlessly to Sekhmet's mocking words. In a sense, Amelia's stance is one that means being dependent on others. But that is the option that Amelia has left, after never being able to choose a single thing for herself. Sekhmet. And Sekhmet looks utterly floored. She immediately looks down, the table and her hair concealing her expression. When? Sekhmet, PFF, ka, ha, ha 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 ha. Ah, yes. So that's it. Yes, that's it, that's definitely it, of course you'd give that answer now. Ah, hilarious. Amelia, is it really that funny? Sekhmet, it's an absolute riot to me, ha. Okay? Hugh. So, Echidna, right, ha. She's this terrible wacko even after her death, Hugh, who enjoys watching the trial's challengers agonize over their pasts and presents in futures alone, ha. The idea that her plans would be destroyed, and like this, it's hilarious, Hugh. Sekhmet laughs uproariously, taking pained breaths while speaking with cheer. She lifts her head and sits upright, leaning against the chair back to view Amelia from straight on. Sekhmet's eyes host a nostalgic gleam as she smiles. Sekhmet, the trial presumes that you're taking it alone, ha, and you answer it by saying that you won't face your challenges alone, Hugh. If Echidna heard this, she'd moan sour grapes all day, all while looking dead serious, ha. Amelia, oh. So that's the reply I could have got. I so want to see that expression on her too. Sekhmet, she's a terrible loser, so I doubt she'd let you see her looking like that, Hugh. That's a privilege reserved for us dream dwellers, ha. Emilia, so unfair. Emilia pouts, which just makes Sekhmet's expression more gleeful. To an outside observer, the harmonious joy abounding from them might make them look like friends who have known each other for decades. Sekhmet, though, in exchange for that, I'll bestow you with your trial results, ha. As you'd expect, there's nothing to complain about. In fact, you pass with a gold star, Hugh. Emilia, should it really be that simple? Sekhmet, did you want a more oblique answer, or some dramatic spiel, ha? Apologies, but you'd be wrong to expect something like that from me, Hugh. I'm the supervisor right now, and my word goes, Hugh. The trial's over without any issue, ha. With a deep breath, Sekhmet snaps her fingers. She fails to get a sound on the first attempt, or the second, but on the third try finally manages a click and a breeze gusts from behind Emilia. Emilia glances behind her, her silver hair swaying, to find that a door has appeared at the bottom of the hill. It doesn't look like it leads anywhere, but Emilia intuitively knows that this door is the dream world's exit. Emilia, you mean, once I go through that door, the trial's over? Sekhmet, that's the one, ha. Congratulations, Hugh. In the 400 years, ha, since this tomb was made and Echidna's trials came into operation, nobody had defeated these trials, Hugh. Well, not that there was an abundance of challengers in the first place, ha. Emilia, yeah. Not many people have been to Sanctuary, and meeting the requirement to get trapped in Sanctuary is actually surprisingly tough. Sekhmet, there's that too, but, well, it doesn't really matter, Hugh. It's all over anyway, ha. It does bother Emilia how Sekhmet starts getting vague, but she doesn't pry into it. More importantly, she's elated to hear that the trial is over. Honestly, she doesn't feel any sense of achievement yet. It hasn't hit her yet. She had struggled so much with the first trial that she'd almost broken down, thinking this whole thing impossible. She did feel that she came here resolved not to lose, but even so. Sekhmet, you don't look like you agree with it, Hugh. Emilia, well, I am kinda bothered. So just kinda bothered. Sekhmet, Echidna doesn't present problems that can't be solved, ha. It's incorrect to say that's the whole of it, but that's basically the whole of it, Hugh. When it's one which saying it about another, it's probably right. Emilia nods reluctantly in a show of agreement. Sekhmet glances at her, examining her, before giving a small wave of her hand on the table. Sekhmet, once you exit ha that door behind you, it's goodbye to this dream castle, Hugh. Which also means that's the end of the trial, ha. And that you're qualified to enter the room, Hugh, in the back of the trial chamber, ha. Emilia, open the door. Right. And go in there, what's in there? Sekhmet, the mechanism that keeps the tomb functioning is Hugh. Once it's stopped, ha, Sanctuary's duties will come to their end, Hugh. You'll how to stop it once you go in, ha. Emilia, I stop the tomb's functions, and Sanctuary's duties end. So the barrier disappears. If the barrier is extinguished, then Emilia and the people of Sanctuary will be able to exit the forest. She doesn't know how many people will leave for the outside world once the barrier is opened. Or whether life on the outside will truly be to their benefit. But they can't stay closed up in here any longer. Just like how Subaru argued Garfield down, Emilia has to convince them. This is the end of a period spent in a place with stop time. Once time is moving again, how are they going to make a place for themselves to live? If possible, then Emilia wants to search for the answer with them. She can guide them by the hand, give a push to their backs, and no matter how hard it is, she can walk at their side. Though it's an unreliable, shaky, and fledgling demonstration of leadership. Sekhmet, it's enough. Says Sekhmet, as if she's seen into Emilia's thoughts. That comment alone doesn't come with any of her characteristic sighs. Sekhmet said it for her while looking her straight on, and it makes Emilia gulp. And smile. Emilia, thank you. That's how I want to go my way. With that, Emilia gets to her feet. She brushes her hair into order before bowing her head to Sekhmet. She doesn't really know why she's doing it. But it feels like simply saying a goodbye won't be enough. Why is it that she feels so grateful? Sekhmet surely won't tell her. She pushes her seat in and descends the hill on her way to the door. The door feels ephemeral as it stands there in the middle of the meadow, and Emilia realizes that she feels somewhat sad to be leaving the castle in a dream. White table, crisp breeze. Bright sunshine, perfect weather. It would be so fun to hold a tea party around that table. Emilia, Sekhmet-san. Can you tell Echidna something for me? Sekhmet, let's hear it, ha. Emilia, if we ever get the chance to see each other again, let's have a tea party. Even if I'm doing it in a dream, I'll definitely welcome it. Sekhmet, no problem at all. I'll tell her. Her hand on the doorknob, Emilia glances back to address Sekhmet, who smiles. Emilia returns the smile and opens the door. Beyond the door is darkness. But for some reason, she feels no hesitation about stepping into it. Amelia already knows exactly where it leads. She has overcome her past, chosen her present, and now meets a door to the future. Feeling somewhat suffocated, Amelia sits up on the hard ground. Coming back from the trial isn't the same as waking up from sleep. It's not that her body fell into slumber, but that her consciousness was taken from her body, led somewhere else. Her body and soul were in different places, and seeing that her soul wasn't sleeping, of course it's different from sleep. If this were the same kind of thing as normal sleep, then considering that Amelia is rather bad at waking up, quite a lot of time would pass until she was really awake. Puck would be the one to wake her up before, but he isn't here now, and so it would have eaten considerable time. And now she will need to learn how to deal with this on her own, for the future. Amelia, gotta stop. Amelia shakes her head to dispel her sleepy thoughts, and puts her hand to the wall as she gets to her feet. She feels pretty much fine. It still doesn't feel like she's overcome the trials. But if what Sekhmet told her in the dream was true. Amelia, I should be able to open the door. She looks to the back of the chamber, sighting the stone door across the small room. The door hadn't moved an inch when she pushed or pulled it before, and just like how the tomb's walls glimmer slightly to Amelia's vision, this door also looks to be cloaked in light. Unlocked. Might be what it means. Amelia's footsteps peel as she approaches the door. As she stands before it, she holds her breath for a moment. On the other side of this door will be something that liberates Sanctuary. Sekhmet said she'd know what to do, but honestly Amelia's a little worried that she won't. Amelia isn't exactly confident about her smarts. Is she not allowed to bring anyone along with her? Though, alongside the fact that not many people can get this far inside, she gets a feeling that the door won't open if anyone else is around. Perhaps this is all happening because of how smoothly it all went. Amelia cannot erase her paranoia about this door. Perhaps it's all a deception, she wonders. You could that being warier than before, but it's a wariness limited to things connected to Echidna. A sense of caution she gets because she knows the personality of the person who set this up. Amelia, anyway, have to go in. Okay, here I go. She balls her hands into fists to psych herself up, and moves to put her hand to the door. Should she push or pull? While she considers the issue, and just as her fingertips graze the door, the stone door slides sideways to make a path for Amelia. Amelia, I feel like Echidna's smiling so nastily right now. Mutters Amelia, pouting at her spoiled start. Amelia gets the feeling that this door's gimmick is some very elaborate pestering from Echidna, which slightly calms her tension. She gives a sigh, gets herself back in the mood, and steps into the room. The door opens into a room less than half the size of the trial chamber. It's smaller than a room that's already small. Just 2 beds from the Roswell mansion would be enough to occupy all the space. She hadn't expected the room to be this cramped. Her eyes widen at how constrained it is, before she spots the thing in the back of the room, and puts her hand to her mouth in shock. In the back of the room is something like a transparent coffin, with a woman lying inside. Her time is frozen, keeping her so beautiful that you could wonder if she was only sleeping. The coffin looks to be made out of spellstone, and when Amelia touches it to examine its purity, she is shocked at how superior it is. Such high-grade crystal would excel even Puck's old anchor. A woman is sealed in spellstone capable of sealing things superior to the great spirit Puck. Of course, she isn't breathing. Amelia feels no life from her, and what remains is a husk. Her long, sleek hair is white as frost. Her cheeks and neck, what areas of skin are visible, possess the beauty of virgin snow. Amelia's breathing near hitches before her stunning visage. Her beautiful form is garbed in perfectly black raiment, with not a single superfluous color present, the dress-like vestment crafted to her in miraculous concord. A beautiful woman who can be described with the 2 hues white and black. True beauty. The utter lack of need for any superfluous accessories would probably feel terror when faced with this black and white countenance. Amelia, she's beautiful. Amelia's thoughts escape her lips. Amelia would find another strikingly beautiful woman if she looked in the mirror, but her sentiments have nothing to do with that. She is simply so enraptured by the beauty of this thing before her that she is absolutely moved. A beautiful woman of black and white. That would be someone she met in the Castle of Dreams, the Witch of Greed. In the depths of the tomb, waiting there beyond the defeat of the Witch of Greed's trials is Amelia. She looks like Echidna, but who is she? A woman reminiscent of the thirst for knowledge incarnate, but who Amelia has never seen before. Chapter 127B, Never Quit. The only observable thing in this room is the white woman in the coffin. Amelia, then, this thing she's entombed in, is the mechanism to turn off the barrier? Says Amelia after looking over the room, looking perplexed with her head tilted. There are no nice and obvious levers, or spellstones you just have to crush. A dim glow shrouds the transparent spellstone encasing her, and Amelia can tell that it is siphoning mana. The only functioning thing in this place is this coffin. Amelia, seriously, who is she? Maybe Echidna's mother. Amelia thinks back on the witch who always looked so disgusted around Amelia. She also had white hair and wore black clothes, like the woman in the coffin, and Amelia remembers vividly how attractive her features were as well. The visage of the witch in her memories and of the woman in the coffin have many points in common. Like the positioning of her closed eyes, or the shape of the bridge from her lips to her nose. Echidna had looked like a late teen, while the woman in the coffin is more in her early 20s. Perhaps it's better to think her Echidna's older sister than her mother. Amelia, and there's no name. But this is supposed to be Echidna's tomb. Except Amelia goes in, to find that the woman in the coffin is not Echidna. Perhaps the tomb's name was a deception or... Amelia, maybe this is Echidna, and the girl I saw in the dream wasn't Echidna? It's a crazy theory, and even Amelia has to shake her head. Leaving aside whatever Echidna would say, Sekhmet surely would have mentioned something. And now it's too late for Amelia to simply regard anyone else as being Echidna. Amelia, it's Echidna's tomb, but someone else is sleeping here, might be what's happening. If so, then they better change the name of the tomb. It says that Echidna rests here. But it's someone else's place of slumber which causes lots of problems. Offerings will be going to the wrong person, among other things. It's not the most clear-cut of conclusions, but still Amelia reaches it as she inspects the coffin, taking care not to touch the thing. She glances over the flow of mana. It appears that the coffin and the tomb are absorbing minuscule amounts of mana from the earth linked to the tomb, and are using that mana to power some kind of algorithm. It's an infinitesimal load of mana it's absorbing, but it's still powering as something as huge as the barrier, indicating that it's gathering the mana from quite a large area. Earth linked to the tomb had been a literal statement. The entire breadth of the forest inside the barrier is probably the tomb's power source. And the tomb takes tiny loads of mana at a time, so that it won't affect that power source. Amelia, it's amazing, so amazing, that I have no idea what it's doing. The algorithm is siphoning a flow of mana, powering the magical faculties. Amelia can write simpler algorithms, but the complexity of the algorithm for the barrier around Sanctuary far exceeds her comprehension. If she stops these processes, she doubts that they will ever restart. Not that there's any need to restart them. Amelia, there. If I cut off this flow, that will probably sever the supply. Amelia follows the flow of mana and locates the origin point for the barrier, which uses the coffin as its nucleus. Inside the tomb, where the woman's hands are folded atop her stomach, is the exact point into which the mana flows. If Amelia meddles with the mana there to disrupt the algorithm, then that will terminate all of this tomb's faculties. Amelia. For a moment, she hesitates. Terminating the tomb's faculties will probably damage the mechanism that starts the trial. Which means that she'll no longer be able to enter the Castle of Dreams. She will probably never get to have that tea party with Echidna. The witches, or at least Sekhmet, know about Amelia's mother. She had felt both awe and nostalgia for Sekhmet's overwhelming power. She wants to know what exactly that sense of familiarity signifies. If she cannot enter the Castle of Dreams, she is furthering herself from that goal. And that. Amelia, I just can't let go, can I? With that mutter, Amelia disrupts the weak flow of mana transmitting from the coffin to her fingertips. A shift occurs in the power that supports Sanctuary's faculties and comprises its barrier. It meddles with the critical parts of the algorithm, compounding from a small into a massive alteration. The glow eventually melts away, all signs of the algorithm vanishing from the spellstone coffin. All that remains after one last flash of light is the pure spellstone, with the woman still sealed inside. Amelia, I guess that's the end. Having observed no visible changes, Amelia timidly looks around the area. The flow of mana previously circling through the tomb is gone, leaving the tomb as nothing more than massive stone building. With a quiet sigh, Amelia leans against the coffin. The tomb has probably stopped rejecting the unqualified now. Amelia ought to bring Roswell or Lewis inside, being that they probably know what's going on, and ask them who the person slumbering here is. Amelia, it's over, yes, it's over. By repeating the statement over and over, Amelia attempts to catch the truth that she is not feeling. She thinks back on the lofty talk she gave to Roswell before challenging the tomb. Roswell had told her, all you have to do is procure the results you desire. Amelia couldn't suppose what his sentiment had been, but she doubted that he wanted her to beat the trial. Though, he was also the one who beckoned her here, and was endorsing her as a selection candidate, leaving her befuddled as to his reasoning. Amelia, teacher, is what he said, right? What she also recalls is this person who Roswell called teacher. Even someone at the pinnacle of magicianhood like Roswell would, naturally, have had a master. Roswell's master, that being this person called teacher, had started sanctuary with him. Amelia, and maybe that was you, thinks Amelia as she strokes the coffin. If Roswell had his teacher, someone irreplaceable to him, then perhaps this white woman would suitably be it. Amelia, I need to talk to everyone. Amelia shakes her head and pulls her gaze away from the coffin. Though, she will have to postpone the talk about the entombed woman. According to Subaru, if they fail to exit sanctuary before tomorrow night, that is, dawn of the day after next, then something terrible is going to happen. If anything obviously out of the ordinary happens in sanctuary, run away as fast as you can, he said. Though she has a whole day of extra time, she doesn't know whether any unforeseen circumstances are going to pop up. She trots out of the room and into the hallway, making her way to the exit. If things are still the same, then Lewis and the people of sanctuary should be waiting for her outside. Amelia's footsteps peel over the stone as she runs down the corridor, before exiting the dark tomb for open plaza. Where? Amelia, huh? Met with a blizzard raging through sanctuary, Amelia breathes a hazy, white breath. The snow encompasses everything in sight. The gale roars close by, and the snow thieves her body of warmth. After a white puff of breath, Amelia's amethyst eyes blink as her throat freezes in shock. What on earth happened? Leah-sama. The wind howls. Her chilled ears throb in pain. Frigid gusts feel to slice at Amelia's skin, dressed lightly as she is, when she hears a voice calling from beyond the blizzard and stops still. Snow has already accumulated up to Amelia's knees and threatens to swamp her down. She takes every step forcefully, trudging through the frost, to find silhouettes gathered beyond the veil of white. They must be the people of sanctuary. Meaning that they waited for Amelia in this blizzard, without ever retreating indoors. Amelia, everyone. Why are you all outside in this SN, huh? Amelia imagines everyone huddled together to stave off the cold, when she stops. There are about 40 sanctuary dwellers including Lewis. That's a huge number to start with, but Amelia also spots someone who shouldn't be here. Amelia-sama. Is the trial over? The speaker is a young man with a crew cut. Amelia knows him. Because she spoke with him before coming to sanctuary, and she would have spoken to him even had he not acknowledged her. It's a youth from Arlem Village's Young Men's Brigade. Seeing him, when he's supposed to have left sanctuary several hours ago on Otto's instructions, makes Amelia's eyes shoot open. And what surprises her even more is that it's not just him. With Crewcut as their leader, Amelia spots several other people from Arlem. They have come in carriages, huddling with the people of sanctuary inside the vehicles, or in its shadow to endure the blizzard. Amelia, why is everyone? But didn't you evacuate? Man, yes, we did. On Subaru-sama and Otto-san's instructions. They said that the dragons know the way, so just run. Amelia, then why? Didn't you hear that it's going to be dangerous here? Man, we have heard. And we were told. The youth grits his teeth before raising his head and pointing beyond the forest. Man, to wait outside the forest, return once the signal appears from sanctuary, and retrieve those still here. Amelia, huh? Man, such as Ram-sama and the others. Anyway, they would fire magic into the sky. We were to return to sanctuary once we saw it, load the residents into carriages, and leave. Amelia, who gave these instructions? Man, Otto-san did. Hearing Otto's name makes Amelia think of that flaky-looking merchant. Though, no matter what impression he gives, he is Subaru's friend. Every time she sees the two talking jovially, it reaffirms Amelia's assessment that he's someone capable of rivaling Subaru. Otto had definitely planned a lot of the happenings in sanctuary, starting with the Garfield affair, while acting as Subaru's co-conspirator. Meaning that these instructions are hugely significant. Amelia, but this was still reckless. The blizzard is blowing so hard, you should have known that doing this was crazy. The man says nothing. Amelia, what's wrong? The man makes an awkward-looking expression and averts his gaze. Amelia doesn't overlook his reaction, instead pressing him further. Amelia's amethyst gaze pierces him. He puts his hand to his brow, and sighs a frigid white sigh. Man, Otto-san told us that the truly dangerous thing would be if it snows prior to the signal. Since snowfall marks the time limit, he told us to immediately leave the forest then. Amelia, they even knew about the snowfall, no, just never mind that. Why did you come, then? Man, because it snowed. The man straightens his back and gives his firm reply to Amelia's wails. His gaze is so strong, Amelia falls speechless. They knew that snowfall meant danger. And they saw it snowing in sanctuary and understood that they had reached the time limit for that danger. With that knowledge, they chose to come here. They sped here to where the residents of sanctuary were in danger. Man, we suspected that Subaru-sama or yourself would have done exactly this. Emilia. With a wry smile, the man answers the question in Emilia's throat. So the evacuees overlooking the carriages behind him were Arlem's young men brigade. Since their goal is to evacuate the people of Sanctuary, everyone unneeded must have left them and evacuated. That said, those who left would be forced into the tribulation of evacuating by foot. And these men were here because they judged that this was correct. Man, Emilia-sama, if the trial is over, can they exit this place? Emilia, why yes, they should. But, with this snow and wind. The man gazes at the ground, clicking his tongue in frustration. Snow has piled so thick that walking even a short distance is a trial. Carriage wheels won't find any purchase in this, they are stranded. But if they could at least find somewhere warm, where many people could bide through the cold. Emilia, if we can't relocate as far as the cathedral, let's get everyone inside the tomb. The manna there keeps the inside warm, and we don't have to worry about the building collapsing beneath the snow. Man, it's possible to go in? Emilia, I turned off the tomb's dangerous mechanisms, everything's dandy now. Anyway, are you able to transport everyone as far as the tomb? And the dragons should be loosed from the carriages and let inside too. The 6 dragons had accommodated the brigade and brought them all the way back here. Even in this instant, the dragons' carriages are protecting 2-digit columns worth of people. It's inconceivable that they could possibly abandon the dragons. The man nods with a, definitely. This should be good enough to deal with the snow for the moment. The issue now is that something dangerous is going to happen alongside the snowfall. Emilia, I wish we'd actually talked about this beforehand. Emilia mourns the lack of time she had to speak with Subaru before challenging the trials. This probably happened because Subaru didn't want to leave Emilia with anything that would needlessly worry her. Though she's glad for his thoughtfulness, it's ridiculous that it's going to hamper her reaction to the danger. Emilia can think of 3 people who, like Subaru's group, probably know about the snow. That is Roswell, Ram, and You've done well to make it back to us, Emilia-sama. Emilia, Lewis-san. A pink-haired girl hops out of a carriage and onto the snow Lewis. With how short she is, the snow that reaches to Emilia's knees reaches to her thighs. She trudges laboriously through the snow while Emilia hurriedly approaches her. Emilia, the trial's all over now. Is everybody here? Lewis, all of Sanctuary's people, and all of the humans who came back Ferris Air present, yes. But. Emilia, but? Lewis, Miss Ram and Lil Roz ain't here. The 2 of them have been somewhere else since before it started snowing. Emilia gazes over the people and the carriages. She does not spot that familiarly bizarre outfit, nor that dependable pink-haired girl. Emilia, if I don't search for them. Lewis-san. Do you know? What's going to happen if we stay in Sanctuary with all this snow? Lewis. Lewis's cheeks stiffen, and she lowers her gaze. Emilia recognizes what this means. Lewis knows what is happening. She knows what the danger is. Emilia, please tell me, Lewis-san. We have to prevent it. Lewis, but you see, the timing fair it's off. Lil Sue said that Lil Roz is planning fair snow to fall tomorrow night, so there must have been some mistake for it to be snowing now. Emilia, what mistake, it is snowing right now. So. We need to do whatever we need to do when the snow comes. Lewis-san. Emilia puts her hands on Lewis's small shoulders as she attempts to persuade her. Lewis's sour expression shifts, until she's left staring at Emilia in dumb shock. Emilia, what's wrong, Lewis-san? Lewis, Emilia-sama. Have you gone into the building deep in Sanctuary's forest? Emilia, deep in the forest? No, I haven't. Emilia tilts her head in confusion. Lewis, that isn't possible. Starts Lewis before looking at the tomb behind Emilia. Lewis, then maybe there was something in the tomb that seemed special, perhaps. Like, perhaps. A giant spellstone, or something similar. Emilia, there was. A so giant spellstone. I kinda wanted you and Roswell to look at it later. Emilia glances around the area, then draws her lips near to Lewis's ear. So that nobody else can hear her, as they begin preparations to move the dragons. Emilia, there was a woman inside the spellstone. I don't know who she was. Lewis. This information rocks Lewis's expression. Lewis's eyes shoot open as she stares at Emilia. After a long, long sigh. Lewis, then. Lewis nods as if agreeing with something. Lewis, understood. Emilia-sama, ask whatever your wish. I'm obligated to answer you. Obligated to follow your orders. Emilia, I'm not ordering anything. Lewis, listen. That thing you're touched in the tomb ers a spellstone that picks who's qualified to command Lewis. You now hold those qualifications instead of Lilgar. I know we shall obey you. Please order us however you wish. With that solemn reply, Lewis attempts to lower herself while thigh-deep in snow. This will result in her kneeling and burying herself head-deep in snow, and panics Amelia. She promptly grabs Lewis by the shoulders to stop her. Amelia, oh whoa. Right, okay. So I can ask things from you, Lewis-san. Then I'll ask this. Please tell me what happens when there's snow in Sanctuary. Lewis, Lil Sue says that once it snows in Sanctuary, the witch beast's sizable hair will come. It's drawn here by the mana in the algorithm to do something as massive as change the weather to snowfall, ers the word. Amelia, algorithm to change the weather, then, somebody's behind this. Lewis silently nods. This is magic immense enough to manipulate the weather. Puck could easily do this, if he was being serious. Which makes Puck the most suspicious candidate, but considering Lewis's attitude and the context of the situation, Amelia immediately lands on the culprit. Amelia, is it Roswell? Lewis, most likely. I think Miss Ram left to try and stop him. But if the snow came anyway, then it's possible that. Amelia, stop. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, I need to find them. Lewis-san, I'm going to start searching the village for them. If you have any ideas where they could. Lewis, no need fear that, Amelia-sama. Lewis interrupts Amelia with incredible confidence. It's like she knows exactly what Amelia's thinking, and it makes Amelia gulp. And Lewis, us Lewises keep a close eye on everything in Sanctuary. We'll find and get you to them in a jiffy. Lewis gives Amelia her stamp of approval. Ram, as she lies unconscious, almost looks to be nearly sleeping. Roswell, Ram? Roswell draws the fallen, limp girl into his arms, jerking her. But Ram gives no reply. This girl. Who would put aside anything to give Roswell's words priority? Ram. Of course she doesn't reply. Ram is dying this very instant. And it's all because of Roswell. The burning of the gospel had sent him into a fury. His vision seethed with crimson, he had no idea what was anything anymore, but he knew that he could not forgive Ram for doing this, and Roswell struck her with a ball of fire while she was undefended, blasting her away. She had overtaxed herself with imperfect ONI strength, and burdened herself with the exact same fatigue only hours earlier. Ram's body had reached its limit when a fireball blasted her. Her life hangs in the balance. Roswell, Ram. Roswell cannot remember what he thought as he drew near to her prone form and touched her. Even now, as he holds her close and gazes at her sleeping, he does not think anything. Roswell regarded Ram as an incredibly convenient pawn. She had gone through ordeals by his hand, and their contract preserved an extremely simple relationship between them. He exposed his true thoughts only to Ram, and spoke of his goals only to Ram. He believed that, once that goal was achieved, he would hand himself over to her as his reward for his accomplice. But Ram betrayed Roswell partway through his course. Ram's statements had been correct. Going by her contract, the script for the situation had not unfolded as Roswell intended, and her rebellion was her pre-established revenge. So he will not fault Ram. If forced to say anything, then he would have liked her to postpone her revenge and administer it once the situation about the barrier had been definitely determined. Then there was the topic of his bet with Subaru. Garfield had been unexpectedly pliant, and some sympathetic sounding talk had seen Amelia re-attempt the trial, but ultimately Subaru's speeches were the ramblings of a weakling. It is impossible to defy a predetermined future. The path to reach that future may change, but events will still lead to the destined end. Should someone stray from the path leading to the correct ending, what awaits is doom. But they're still resisting it, and it makes Roswell laugh. And the fact that Roswell knows this, and knows how weak he is for fearing their actions, also brings laughter. Why are they trying to change anything? He can't understand it. Once any feeling reaches its peak, once it apexes, it will never fade in intensity. If you love someone, if your heart ever blazes with love for someone, then that heat, that brilliance, ought to be eternal. And the same concept applies even if the emotion in question is hatred. Feelings you have held for a long, long time ought to ascend to legitimacy. Feelings fostered over time are ironclad, never to yield to anyone. They absolutely must be. Garfield's hatred for the outside has shattered. Amelia has accepted her detested and sorrowful past. And Ram's endless, vengeful hatred for Roswell has. Ram, I am in love with you, Roswell-sama. Roswell. A love confession like a curse, burning deep in his ears. Words that came from the mouth of the girl in his arms, which absolutely never should have. Had the contract been binding her heart or soul, then he would have understood it. Her burning desire for revenge had been converted into subordination to Roswell, and her hatred into affection. Which was why Roswell had Ram assist him in his goals more than anyone else, and trusted her for what would come after their realization more than anyone else. Because Roswell believed in her love-converted hatred, and her vengeful desire to kill him. Because he believed in the hatred in the eyes of the girl he first met, and how she gazed at him with absolute murder. And yet Ram betrayed her own vengeance, to extol love. Roswell, why did you, Ram? I don't understand it. Roswell hears how her faint breathing grows distant, and senses that Ram's life is ending. Her heartbeat fades. Something screams that this mustn't continue. His right eye aches. Aches, so terribly. Stop. Stop asserting yourself. He's going to lose himself. What should he do? What must he do? He cannot tell what it is he needs to do, and what it is he mustn't do. He cannot remember it. He cannot conceive it. He looks around the area. Nothing here is what he seeks. The gospel, which told Roswell of the correct path, has been lost in flames. Nobody will teach Roswell. What is the choice he must make here? Nobody will teach him. There is nothing for it now. Roswell, wailing wind beckons the snow, light upon the earth repatriates to sky. Each droplet is silence given form, ivory untouched by past karma's favor laments unchanging eternity. A canto. This hummed, lilting canto gives direction to the power wreathed around Roswell L. Mathers. The vast store of mana interacts with the refined algorithm, bringing dark clouds to the night forest. Frozen wind whips past, and a chill cold enough to freeze to the core rages through sanctuary. Clouds burdened with snow shroud all of the enclosed forest, and white frost dances to the earth. This is the power of the massive scale magic algorithm Ultimillion. Roswell, Ugh, KHH. The canto ends, and the extensively held magical power is released. A massive load of mana is ripped out of Roswell, and even he, who boasts a transcendental store of mana, feels somewhat dizzy. Mana for magic this extensive should truly be built up over several months, and it should be used on a smaller area. Roswell is irregular for procuring the mana over only 2 days, and for affecting a range more than twice the size of the usual. After the magician who achieved this feat gives a long sigh, he finds himself utterly lost on what to do. Roswell, I've made it snow, as the gospel tells, what do I do now? Roswell has forgotten that he has made it snow 1 day earlier than what the gospel's writ stated. Or actually, not even the bet occupies any corner of his mind anymore. Roswell does not pay any heed to the process. His only concerns are for how the events around sanctuary conclude. Snow falls, and the barrier is undone. Should that happen, then what happens? Roswell, Ram, yes. Ram. He can no longer hear Ram's breathing. Roswell looks down at her face, and gently touches her forehead. Her transformation means that her scar, where her horn used to be, is bleeding. Roswell wipes away the blood, and as he always does with Ram, injects colorless mana formed from a combination of all 6 mana types into her. This was a ritual the two had always done, so that Ram's ONI blood would not conquer her. It's not that he's thinking anything. Roswell unconsciously understands that he is merely betting that her vitality as an ONI will keep her alive. He has no questions about saving her. Ram needs to live. For the sake of Roswell's goals, and for what comes after the realization of those goals. Roswell, teacher. Teacher, What am I supposed to do? Teacher. Teacher. Please tell me, please, guide me again. Roswell's confusion reaches its pinnacle, and he cannot even comprehend his own heart as he wails. Though he is trying to ensure Ram's survival, his anger about her betrayal remains. He knows that he has lost his beacon, but still searches for that old light. The snow falls, encasing Roswell and Ram in white flakes. Everything drowns in the white, disappearing. With the thought of, and perhaps that is fine, not present in him in the slightest. Amelia cuts through the snow, breathing white puffs, as she dashes onward. Amelia, Huma. Again, Huma. She shouts, casting ice magic upon ice magic. She is doing it to avoid time loss from her feet getting bogged in the snow. She uses her magic to purposefully harden the snow, giving her a path to sprint upon. Some people might slip and find themselves in quite a bit of danger by using this method, but Amelia, all right. Got it. Amelia is a practitioner of ice magic and grew up in Elier Forest. She is accustomed to frozen ground. She dashes over the freezing snow of Sanctuary as if she owns the place, with her small escort running after her. Amelia, is this honestly working for you? Asks Amelia, out of breath, to her guide. The girl looks up at Amelia and replies with only a nod. They can communicate, but she won't talk to Amelia. This is exactly what the representative Lewis personality had told her to expect. Lewis had suddenly begun showing special respect to Amelia outside the tomb. She informed Amelia that she was an entity born from the soul of a girl named Louise Meyer, and that there were several duplicates of her in the same circumstances. These Louises functioned as eyes spotted around Sanctuary when searching for Roswell and Ram in the community, and were now guiding her to them. There exists in the world extraordinarily rare magic called duplication magic. Amelia had never heard about it being utilized on living creatures before, but perhaps it had been done as a kind of forbidden magic. Amelia had kept herself from asking all the questions she wanted to ask, ran through Sanctuary while relying on the Lewis double, and dashed all about in search of Roswell and Ram. Amelia, if I don't hurry, the sizable hair will show up. The witch beast sizable hair. Even Amelia, ignorant of the world as she is, knows the name of this creature. It is one of the three witch beasts alongside the white whale and black snake, and like those other two beasts, regarded as a calamity. It is a witch beast of weak, frail, tiny little hairs. But the beast itself is a group of individuals, a horde of creatures. It is not each individual hair, but the entire group of them that is the calamity called the sizable hair. With its endless hunger and overwhelming numbers, it would devour everything in its path. But still that would not sate it, and it would proceed to wander the world while cannibalizing itself. Indeed a calamity. The terrifying thing is how it can multiply itself infinitely. The sizable hair will usually be low in number, cannibalizing itself to stave hunger when there is nothing to eat, but should it lay eyes on prey that stokes its appetite, it cannot be stopped. It will compound endlessly in number, gnashing away until the prey is destroyed, then cut its numbers back down as it moves on and leaves behind a wasteland. That's what this thing is. Amelia determines that she must face this incredible witch beast. They have already lost the time they need to flee the hare's attack. The accumulated snow hinders their escape, leaving Amelia and the others without options. The non-combatants will hide in the tomb, while a front line is formed at the entrance. That is the only strategy they have for opposing the witch beast. It'll be Amelia and Roswell. If possible they'll include Ram, needing to assemble all the combat power available in Sanctuary. And so Amelia. Snap tree trunks and buildings battered from battle. Gashes in the earth and unnatural pilings of snow. A man and a woman close together in a tree's shade. Having found Ram limp and sleeping, and the dazed Roswell, Amelia shouts. Amelia, Roswell. Ram. Amelia leaves the silent Lewis double behind as she slides over the frozen snow. She manipulates the ground beneath her however she wants, scattering flakes of ice as she moves like a snow pixie, before grabbing Roswell's shoulders as he lies motionless and half buried in the snow. Amelia, are you listening? Roswell, come on, Roswell. We're in trouble. We have to save everyone. This isn't the time to be frozen. Roswell. Rocking him makes the snow fall off Roswell's head. It reveals his expression, and Amelia clicks her throat. Roswell's face as he looks at Ram, his eyes dim, looks feeble. Amelia, Roswell. Roswell says nothing. He hasn't even noticed Amelia. His lack of reaction scares her, and she lowers her gaze to what is cradled in his arms. There sleeps a pink-haired girl. With snow on her cheeks, showing no signs of melting. Amelia. Ram? Ram. Amelia calls to Ram in Roswell's arms and tries waking her up. But Ram gives no particular reaction. Of course she doesn't reply, but she doesn't open her eyes either. In fact, her eyelids don't even twitch. Amelia touches her cheek and her lips to find them abnormally cold. As if she's Amelia, that isn't happening. Amelia rejects her ineffectual thinking as she grits her teeth and reaches into Ram's clothes. Her hand strokes across Ram's chest, where she finds a faint heartbeat. It could disappear at any moment, frail and feeble. Amelia, she's alive. We're okay. We still have time, Roswell. Yells Amelia with hope as she glances back to Roswell. But Roswell remains with his hand on Ram's brow, looking utterly dazed. And Amelia notices it. There is a massive amount of mana flowing from Roswell's hand and into Ram. And this is acting as Ram's lifeline. Amelia, then, you're saving Ram's life. Roswell. Amelia. As she hits upon that truth, Amelia also hits upon the bitter truth. Ram is unconscious, in dire condition, and Roswell must administer the delicate treatment to heal her. They cannot participate in the fight. Meaning that Amelia must face the sizable hair on her own. Can she do it? This monster is one of the three that has survived for 400 years, since the Witch of Envy's era. Who could guess how many people had steeled themselves to face this thing, just as Amelia was now? None of them had managed to destroy the beast. How does Amelia propose to fight it alone? Without Puck. Only Amelia. Amelia, if we go now. Maybe they can still run? But what are they meant to do if it chases them? If they encounter it without any refuges or hiding places, then Amelia cannot protect the civilians from the beast. Guarding somewhere like the tomb presents the most potential. It hurts that Roswell and Ram can't help in combat, but Amelia mustn't abandon the fight. Amelia, Roswell. Bring Ram and come along with me. Everybody from Sanctuary, everybody is taking shelter in the tomb. And I'm going to protect them. Don't give up on healing. Ram and Roswell, it's useless. Amelia meets Roswell's eye level and begins to tell Roswell of her resolve, when his whisper interrupts her. Roswell stares at Ram's face, his eyes still hollow. Roswell, useless. Everything is. I don't know the future. I don't understand myself. This world is done. Amelia, so you're back to saying this. Who cares about the book? Maybe someone kind of important wrote it, but how does that have any say in what we do? Unable to bear his resignation, Amelia raises her voice at Roswell. Why is this happening? This is not the Roswell that Amelia knows. Always composed, making bold decisions like nothing, acting like he knows absolutely everything there is to know, all with a grin. Wasn't that Roswell? Who is weak man, who has given up on everything, looking like a cornered and lost child? Amelia, Roswell. I can't understand what you're feeling, or how you're hurt right now. I do want to understand, but there's no time for me to learn. But I want to make that time. And so I need you to work with me. Roswell. Amelia doesn't understand Roswell. He could continue being like this, and she still wouldn't understand him. But if they converse and divulge their feelings, there are things she will understand. And things she will never understand if she never does this. And things that will never be communicated, if the time for them is never given. Amelia needs to create the time they need to grow closer to one another. Amelia, please, stand up, Roswell. Neither of us are ending here. We won't let Ram end either. We're all going back to everyone, together, and Roswell, Amelia is insistent. But Roswell does not meet her gaze. He continues staring down at Ram, his scarlet lips moving to say, Roswell, I quit. Spoken so quietly, it could disappear. The frigid, whistling winds do whip by, and the words are barely audible. The whisper hardly left his lips. It's questionable whether Roswell himself even heard it. But she definitely does hear that quiet sound of surrender. And so, Amelia. Amelia, don't you dare say that. Grabs Roswell by the collar and screams in anger. The movement rocks Roswell's head, and he whimpers in pain. Amelia assaults him, unrelenting, with her words. Amelia, you quit. What are you saying you quit? There is nothing out there to possibly quit. There is nothing for you to quit. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare surrender. Not me or Ram or you have any single thing we're possibly done with yet. Roswell. Amelia, I finished the trial. The past I was so scared of. A happy present that could have happened. Sad futures that might come. I saw them all. And I still decided to walk this path, and with that resolve, I can finally walk it. She howls. Wrath beyond what Amelia can ever remember surges up inside her. Yes. There it is. Listen to that whiny voice, hear those pathetic opinions, see that gutless spirit. This is what it looks like when you accept surrender as your end. Amelia's roaring makes Roswell's cheeks stiffen, and he averts his gaze. This is not him being worried for Ram, this is him distracting himself and running from something he doesn't want to see. Amelia grabs him by the jaw and forces him to face her. Amelia, look at people's faces when they are talking to you. Roswell, HK. Amelia, you won't understand what people are thinking if you don't look them in the eye. You won't understand why people are doing what they're doing if you don't look them in the eye. Keep your eyes on mine, hear my voice, stand up, and follow me. Roswell's odd-colored eyes blink as if realizing something. His lips twitch. But he manages no words. Roswell, AUH. Amelia, I'll never let anyone say that they quit. As long as you're alive, there's nothing out there for you to quit. And I am not letting anyone die here. Amelia gets to her feet. Turns around. Over 10 Lewis doubles have assembled here. All of them kneel reverently, awaiting orders. Amelia takes a breath and shouts her command. Amelia, take Roswell and Ram back to the tomb. I'm protecting everyone, no matter what. Speaking grandly, and aware that she only acquired this right by coincidence, Amelia leads the obedient Lewises as she breaks into a sprint through Sanctuary's snow. The Lewises group together to support Roswell and Ram, taking turns to make the path while following after Amelia. Amelia no longer hesitates in her course for an instant. And the tails. No need to push yourself so hard, Amelia Tan. The boy who cherishes the girl who decided to protect everything returns to her side. You can hold off and fall back. The inaugural battle of deliverance is here. I'm sorry. That kind of went over my head. Their usual banter makes her smile as she supports her failing body, her eyes tracking the white silhouettes as they press forward. The two silhouettes walking hand in hand. She hears two voices as well. They sound lively, and, feeling that she has been waiting to hear this, the girl's heartbeat pounds. What comes next is a complete unknown, in fact. Yeah, we'll be doing something about this. Together, me and you. And the tales converge, their wishes perfect mirrors as they enter the finale. Knight and Princess, facing Beast in blizzard-swept sanctuary. A knight who cannot manage on his own brings a magician at his side, consecrating everything to victory. The final battle of Sanctuary commences. End of chapters 125B to 127B.